Welcome to another episode of the Gigi Report. This is your host, Godfrey Gichuki. I'm glad you're tuned in. I welcome you to share the links. We are live on Elevate TV, and we also are live on our social media platforms, Elevate TV Kenya, Facebook page, and YouTube channel. So whichever platform you're using to follow this conversation, please share, and let's get this conversation underway. Today, I'm very, very excited to host a friend and a lawyer, and I'll tell you more about her. Welcome to the show, Annabelle.
Thank you, Gigi.
Yes, it's good to see you and to have you here.
Good that you're having me here today.
Yeah, okay, yes. Great. All right, ladies and gentlemen, now, democratic political systems of governance are never without faults or limitations. And so one of the questions we are asking today is, why did we need a political party amendment bill 2021 at the cusp of a new election cycle? And by the way, that amended act was assented by the president, I think a week or so ago. So this is already law. So that's the big question. That's what we want to address ourselves to today, plus a few other issues. And we want to explore that particular matter. Now, as always, welcome to the Gigi Report. We are a platform for big, bold, and honest conversations, as usual, on a broad range of subjects: social, cultural, political, economic, philosophical, and theological. But today we are focusing on political legal conversation. So we are going to lean more towards the law, but again, it's really a political conversation, and I believe you're going to enjoy this conversation. So share, and let's get on with the conversation. But before we begin, I want to introduce to you my guest today. My guest is Annabelle Joki Mwangi. She is an advocate of the High Court of Kenya and a holder of an LLB, that is a Bachelor's of Law degree from Catholic University of East Africa. And Annabelle is an associate at SKOPO and Co Advocates. So don't mess up with me. I can get you in trouble. I have a lawyer here with me. And she's also a consultant for a number of law firms, and was formerly working for the judiciary as a court administrator. So she's very familiar with the court's corridors of justice. Annabelle, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Gigi.
Good. So let's begin from the known to the unknown. Okay. So I would like you to briefly give us a brief of your career, okay, and why you chose to pursue law.
I do not think there was ever a particular reason why I wanted to study law.
Yes.
It's just something I wanted to do, whether to prove to myself that I could do it or yes, out of fascination. Mm-hmm. It's just something that I wanted to do, and I have no regrets. Yes. So basically, the work, our field of work is very broad. Mm-hmm. You have the litigation aspect, which is what a lot of Kenyans are familiar with. Those are the ones who go to court every time. Mm-hmm. So whenever you tell someone you're an advocate, they always think, who anaenda kotini. But that is not what all of us do. We have others who have what we call in-house legal counsel roles. So they're the ones who work as legal officers or as company secretaries in the corporate sectors. You also, now that we have devolution, you also have county attorneys. So our work is pretty broad.
All right.
Yes.
Very good. So, so you had to do some high school stuff as usual.
Yes.
And then of course the LLB.
Yes.
At Catholic University, and then of course you had to go to law school as well.
Yes, you have to go to the Kenya School of Law for the postgraduate diploma.
Exactly. Yes. How was that like?
Interesting. Mm-hmm. It depends on, I think, campus largely depends on where you go to school. Mm-hmm. I would say my experience at Catholic University was very exciting. There was a lot of student activities. Being a regional university, you also get to interact with people from different African countries, so it broadens your network. Of course, you have to keep up with your grades. And
you don't want to fail.
You have to remember why you're there.
Yes.
And then School of Law, Kenya School of Law is, I think, where the rubber meets the road, because that is where things get thick. You have a lot of units to cover, 9 in total, over a period of 9 months. And in between, you also have oral exams and projects. So the challenge starts from day one, because actually week one, because you're all grouped by the school. As opposed to campus where we used to choose who we're going to study with, they do the choosing for you, which I believe are the most problematic. Because now you have to balance all your personalities to get this work done. Either that or you're failing. So we would have very interesting experiences from people dropping each other in the pool because their egos are too big to manage. And then there's oral exams that follow. And then now you start preparing for the main exam. Now, being a 9-month period, and you somehow have to fit in the classwork and the project work, it can be very challenging. But all in all, very, very exciting. And you're also consuming a lot of information within a very short period of time.
Okay.
So I think that's what makes it a challenge for people, but it's not that it's not doable. It's a challenge, but it's very doable.
Okay.
Yes.
So that's why we see the big party after you're inducted. Is it inducted, or what they do at the Attorney General's chambers? Where
you come to, what you do is, when you're done with pupillage,
yes,
you now, and then you're cleared by the Council of Legal Education.
Yes.
You draft what we call your first petition. Petitioning the Chief Justice to admit you to the bar. So you're basically telling the Chief Justice, I have complied with all the requirements and I am ready to become an advocate of the High Court, and then your petition is considered. Then the judiciary will communicate when they will be admitting you to the bar.
Right.
Then now you go to Supreme Court, you take your oath, and you start your career as an advocate of the High Court.
Absolutely. Okay. All right, so let's so we can say we can leave that background there.
Yes.
But maybe we could also, you could shed a little bit of light on your experience in terms of working with SKOPR and advocate, and some of the cases you've handled. What has been the most exciting thing about hanging around? Well, not hanging around the corridors, but representing clients in the courtrooms. Yeah.
My short experience in the profession has actually been very exciting because I've spent very little time on litigation. I've done a bit of it, and then there has also been the regulatory compliance, largely the legal audits. And then before I could properly settle into that, I found myself in public service.
Okay.
I started with the Judicial Service Commission and then crossed over to the judiciary. They each have very interesting lessons for me. For the litigation, the satisfaction is, seeing the look on your client's face when you succeed and justice has been rendered. When you do not win, it is very heartbreaking, but it is not to say that justice has not been rendered. Sometimes even you as an advocate can tell that this is a bad case and you really do not stand a chance. For the regulatory compliance, which I would say is one area of law that I'm extremely passionate about, it was very eye-opening. It was something that I stumbled upon. It was not something that I had planned for. It's just an advocate had a job. They were overwhelmed at their firm and they were like, come, I engage as a consultant. And you realize that it opened my eyes to the fact that we could avoid a lot of the litigation if we got things right internally.
Absolutely.
Which is where the compliance aspect comes in. And compliance is still fairly new in Kenya, but I think it's something we could explore. Public service, very fulfilling, but a very thankless job. You will move heaven and earth to please the client, and there will always be a complaint or another. Most times you will deliver and you will not get that thank you, and we all know thank you means a lot, but you will hardly ever get that in public service. But it has also opened up my eyes to the challenges that the public service also, or that the public sector also is encountering on a day-to-day basis. Okay. Yes.
One of the big issue right now, and it's around the issue of Political Parties Amendment Act 2021. For which Parliament was recalled sometime in December. They debated it aggressively for like about, I think, 2 weeks. And then it went on to the Senate. And then a week ago, I saw the President assenting to the law. we don't know what goes on. What we normally see, let me give you the picture. What we normally see is a long drawn legal battle by two candidates contesting the issue of a certificate of election, I mean nomination by a party. Then that drags on until IEBC is forced to insert the name of this new candidate almost like last minute and have to print new ballot boxes, papers,
Yes.
because the party took so long to resolve the issues of the disputing candidates.
Yes.
And then, eventually one name has to go into the ballot paper. So you could tell us exactly what are the issues that are taken to the tribunal, and what is all those disputes all about?
The Political Parties Dispute Tribunal largely handles or is constituted to handle issues of political parties.
Okay.
Now, they could be handling issues between members of a political party. They could be handling issues of a political party against another political party, or they could be handling issues of coalition partners.
Okay.
That is the scope of their work. How you go to them, you go with them by way of a complaint. So you will have, it's like a typical court process. So the complainant will draw up what we call their pleadings, and they will say, this is my issue, and I would like it addressed against so-and-so. Then they will go and serve the other party within a period of 7 days to inform the other party that they have lodged a complaint against them. And then that party has to respond within a period of 7 days. And then if the complainant, having read the respondent's response, feels there's something they would want to add, they have another 4 days to respond. Now, once that is done, they have what they call a scheduling. Okay, pleadings are closed. Then they have what they call a scheduling conference. At the scheduling conference now, they will highlight what the issues are, how much time they will need to deliberate on the issues, and then now the hearing by the members of the tribunal starts. The tribunal on average will take 3 months to consider your complaint. But on certain issues, they don't need to drag on. It could, like especially, you see now we're in an election year. So the pressure tends to be really high. And they also try as much as possible to confine themselves to IEBC's timelines so that IEBC is also not inconvenienced. So sometimes they will hear you will have your scheduling conference in the morning, they will hear you in the afternoon, and you will have your decision the following day.
Right.
Either in the morning or in the afternoon.
Right.
Which also tells you that these people did not sleep.
Yes.
Yes. So part of their mandate or part of their objectives or obligations are to handle matters efficiently, with fairness, transparently, etc. Hence the reason why they have to sometimes push themselves that extra mile.
Okay.
Yes.
If the tribunal is not able to resolve the dispute, what happens?
They can't afford not to resolve the dispute.
All right.
They cannot afford to not resolve the dispute.
Okay.
Although there are times, because of, what do we call it, Article 159, where we're promoting alternative dispute resolution.
Yes.
We have to, sometimes you'll find the tribunal asking parties to explore internal dispute mechanisms, dispute resolution mechanisms. So that now, instead of you dragging this out, if there's a possibility of these two members, especially in the case of members or in a coalition where you people had an agreement, so you're basically partners. If there's a possibility of you sitting down and coming to an agreement amicably, then they will push you to explore that option. Now, when all that fails, or when all mechanisms tried have failed, then they can hear you. But not rendering a decision is not an option.
Okay.
Yes.
They have to give a decision.
They have to give a decision.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Good. So you're familiar with the Political Parties Act 2011, the one that was crafted following the grand new constitution.
Yes.
Following the new dispensation.
Yes.
So first of all, what was the provisions of that? Because I guess that's what created the Office of the Political Parties, Office of Registrar of Political Parties.
Yes.
That was created and or empowered by that the 2011 Act.
The 2011 Act creates the Office of the Registrar of Political Parties.
Yes.
the 2011 Act creates the Political Parties Dispute Tribunal. It lays out the procedures for the registration of a political party, the criteria that a party needs to meet for it to qualify for funding. Generally lays out, it's a statute that governs anything pertaining to political parties.
Okay.
Yes. Because we also can't have them operating in a vacuum.
Right.
Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I am meant to understand that there are like almost 90 parties. I think 80 something, if not 90.
83 fully registered political parties.
Right.
Although there are some that are currently, there's some that have provisional certificates and are currently being vetted so that they can be issued with now a certificate of full registration so that they're fully recognized as a registered political party.
Okay.
But for those who will be issued with those certificates, they cannot now contest in this year's election.
Or the ones who have provisional?
Yes.
Okay.
They will not be able to contest in this this year's election.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. If I wanted to start a political party and I want to launch papers, what would they take? How many signatures do I need? How many members do I need? And what exactly are the, the simple, a few straightforward things that I would need to get that done?
You would need a constitution, that is one.
Yes.
That is approved by your members. Of course, you go with a register saying I have members. Then that constitution needs to be approved by them. You need to have a registered political office so that we know that this is where we find you. You need to have a philosophy that is telling us this is what I stand for.
Okay.
So whether you're people-oriented or your focus is on agriculture, where you, as a party, where you see the country going, yes, basically.
Is that what they call manifesto and stuff like that?
I wouldn't say it is necessarily a manifesto,
Yeah.
but the philosophy informs the manifesto.
Okay.
Yes.
At what point do you have to submit a manifesto, or is that really a conversation? Because Kenyans, those watching us, what they know they associate parties with, well, of course, they know they have constitutions. Parties have constitution, even churches have constitutions. You have to launch a constitution. But there is this thing called manifesto, or is it the philosophy?
The reason why I'm saying a philosophy is what informs the manifesto is you will realize manifestos change.
Yes.
With every election, whatever promises you were being given last election may not necessarily be the ones you're being given this election.
Okay.
However, when you look at the underlying spirit of the manifesto, you find that it is derived from the philosophy.
Okay.
So, say you would want to see agriculture as a sector, or rather you want to see Kenyans not farming for the sake of farming, but doing very targeted or very specific farming, which means you would want them to be provided with statistics or research that informs when to plant, how to plant, when to harvest, how to handle the produce after you've harvested. So that could be in your philosophy. But say for this year, you only want to introduce one technological feature or advancement to improve that sector.
Okay.
In the next 5 years, you could be looking to something else. But you still want to have farmers having very targeted or specific and informed farming techniques and what have you. Yes.
Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, as you follow this conversation, if you are looking to start the Farmers Political Party, now you have an idea. And you can have Annabelle as your consultant. She will help you craft the philosophy and then, of course, the other manifestos and stuff like that. I hope you have been involved. Has anybody consulted you on the manifesto or the philosophy?
Largely, the manifestos have been consulted on for the Law Society of Kenya elections.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Okay. So
yes.
Very good. Very good. So, Anne, I'm very happy with this kind of information, because I really have always felt that there is something that is missing in the conversation around parties. So that is what the 2011 Act provided for, the framework. with which then political parties can run.
Yes.
Of course, we are not assuming that there was a vacuum before, but I think there were other previous acts of parliament,
Yes.
and then this had to be done because of the new dispensation, the 2020 constitution, isn't it?
Yes.
So now, the elephant in the house, the amendment. Why the amendment?
The question really is, why the amendment?
Yes.
Because there are those who feel we could have done without it, and there are those who feel it is necessitated. And I would say the most problematic issues with the amendment come down to the new animal that is the coalition political party. Then there's the question of funding, and with the question of the coalition political party. When you look at the definition of a political party, we're talking about citizens coming together who share ideals and therefore feel they need to coalesce to advance a particular agenda. Now, an argument has been advanced that when you now come up with a coalition political party, you're eliminating that question of the citizen, which I believe is also what largely UDA and their proponents were saying. They're saying you're taking a shortcut by giving us, for the coalition political party, so that now you're setting a double standard, whereas for someone who's looking to register a political party afresh, they have to comply with all these requirements, even have to wait a provisional period before they can be issued with the final certificate. And then this one just comes, you guys sit together around a table, you decide you want this thing, draft your agreement and go and lodge it with the Registrar of Political Parties. Which is an argument I would say I do not, it comes from an intelligent place, technical argument, so to speak, but I find that I do not necessarily agree with it.
Okay.
Because a coalition political party is existing political parties coming together.
Actually, by the way, and I want you to say that again and afresh, because there are people who need to hear that. Coalition political party is a completely new animal in terms of the entity.
Yes.
Such an entity. It wasn't clearly defined in the previous
Actually,
act.
it did not exist in the previous act.
So
the previous act only had coalitions, which meant that you could come together as political parties.
Yes.
To, you have a common agenda and you're looking to form government.
And you were bound together by an MOU.
Yes.
The famous MOUs.
Yes, an agreement, which were largely referred to as MOUs because it's just a memorandum of understanding.
Yes.
And, but there was no legislation requiring it to now take the nature and form of a party.
Okay.
Now this is looking to convert that into a party.
Formalize the MOUs. So give it some grounding, some legal grounding, so that then it's a legally recognized body, coalition political party.
Yes.
Okay.
So people are saying that the argument that it is not going, or that the aspect of the citizen is going to be lost does not hold water to me, because if it is political parties coming together, these political parties already have citizens within them. They do not exist amorphously. They are made up of citizens. And for these political parties to come to the table, negotiate, and append their signatures to, and possibly seals, to this agreement, these same citizens belonging to these political parties must have approved. So they must have sanctioned their leadership to go and engage the leadership of that other political party.
And I'll hold you there, because that is also another elephant in the house. Ladies and gentlemen, you are following this conversation. We are talking about the Political Parties Amendment 2021, the legal political implications, and as you can tell, there are very many complications in there, and but we want to dig into the details. But we have to take a short break. when we come back from the break, I'll ask Annabelle to clarify a little bit more so that you can understand the changes that have taken place and what that means for this particular political election year, which is obviously, as you can tell, gathered a lot of heat. So don't go away, stay tuned, just take a short coffee break. We come back shortly.
Guidance to help pastors stand strong.
There are certain major attacks that men of God face in their life and ministry.
According to our tests, this man, we are just sure about 3 hours.
3 hours.
3 hours. 3 hours.
Oh my God.
Focus on issues affecting women.
Today on Sister Talk, we are going to discuss young wives.
And then those surprising moments, sometimes anakuja unashtuka, hey, mtu amekuja na flower, unasema hata sikuwa naitarajia, si birthday.
Empowering talks on health and wellness.
The services, they are deep.
Yes.
They have ridges,
Yes.
and these tend to hide food.
Yes.
So you make sure they are super clean.
Wow.
Yeah.
Spice up your weekend with top-rated Christian movies.
An army of believers and will stand on your word above all else.
Okay, welcome back. This is the GG report. We're talking about the political parties amendment bill 2021, which was assented to by the president, I think about a week or so ago since this recording. And we're looking at the implications, and I have a guest with me here, and we're talking about why did it become necessary for the Political Parties Act to be amended, and we are exploring that, and there are many issues, especially the coalition bit of it. All right, so Anne, so coming back to that same conversation where just before we went to the break, we were talking about the coalition, that now there is a new, so the new act defines coalitions in a much better way. I'm assuming that's the case. Of course, there were people who felt no, it wasn't even necessary to have the amendment, and there were those who were obviously pushing for the amendment, and we observers are supposed to see it as a good thing. All right, so you can probably just clarify a little bit on what the new act means in terms of coalitions.
So like I've said, members have mandated, or how it is envisioned is that members will mandate their leadership to go and engage the other side's leadership.
Yes.
But
because that was the counter-argument.
Yes.
The counter-argument was this amendment is not necessary. After all, these coalitions, they normally don't quite bring in the citizens who are members of the political party. The unit political parties that are forming the coalition. So it's probably not necessary. It is a shortcut. It is benefiting the people who are sitting around the table formulating the coalition.
Yes.
And they don't have the mandate of the individual citizen members of the individual parties.
yes, that is one of the arguments.
Yeah.
However, much as we can agree that it is envisioned that members will sanction their leadership, we also cannot look away from the fact that by and large, quite a number of political parties in this country are centered around individuals.
Right.
So the party holds because of who its leader is.
Okay.
You take that out of the equation, then there really is no party. So sometimes, whereas you will be told Party X is coming to the negotiating table, it is not because the members have sanctioned it. It is because the individual who is the it in that party has said that that's where we're going. And, you know, there's really no room for negotiation.
Okay.
Then there's the whole concept of pre-election and post-election coalitions. We are told that by and large, the reason why we are having this now law is that MOUs have been rubbished in the past, so we feel it would be better to legislate this so that there is an avenue in the event that one of the parties is going to attempt to renege on the agreement. Fine, it is a plausible argument in the sense that having a pre-coalition agreement will set the tone for how you conduct the elections or your election campaigns as coalition partners, and how you will run your affairs post-election. But I see a danger in the sense that with the pre-election pact, you're operating on assumptions. You're deliberating on divisions and what have you of perhaps cabinet positions, the sharing of funds that come through the political parties fund, without having tested your muscle.
Right.
So in as much as this document will have been drafted and lodged with a Registrar of Political Parties, in the event that things do not turn out as envisioned come election day, some of these agreements will be at risk.
Okay.
Of course, because now it's going to be a contract, there's that whole element of offer, acceptance, intention to be bound. Being the political space, I anticipate that whichever legal minds are going to be engaged to draft this agreement for their respective clients are going also to be operating on instructions that, you know, you will draft, but draft it while seeing a way out.
Actually, but I was going to ask you that. I was going to ask you, does the coalition provision envision, say, like, does it provide for example, we say so a political party gets a small slice, 20% of the votes, another one gets 30% or 15 and all that, and then you need three political parties to kind of like have majority in parliament. Does the new act provide for post-election coalition?
Yes.
So that you can form government?
Yes.
Because I think that's what I see mostly in the West. In
can-
Germany, Israel,
Yes.
so the individual parties do their bait, get whatever number of parliamentarians they get in,
Yes.
and then after that, then you find there is this period where the prime minister-elect or the possible prime minister, the head of the majority party, has to now negotiate after the fact with the various possible suitors to form a government, so that then now you have to register a coalition which then meets the threshold or whatever thresholds are provided for. Is that what we're seeing now?
You see, the conversation around this bill has largely been focused on the pre-election pact.
Okay.
Because the pre-election pact has a timeline that could jeopardize your stakes if you don't meet it.
Yes.
But what has not been canvassed is the fact that the whole aspect of a post-election coalition was not taken off the table by the bill. So you can still form a post-coalition agreement.
Post-election.
Post-election coalition agreement. And despite the fact that certain people will have their pre-election pacts, we cannot rule out the possibility that how the election plays out could actually put them in a situation where they now have to abandon that agreement or adjust it to accommodate a post-election player.
Okay.
Someone who they had not considered before, or someone who they were not even looking to engage before. But because of how the numbers are looking, if they're going to not only form government, but if they are going to run a successful government, then they have to engage that party.
Okay.
So yes, enjoy your pre-election pacts, but make provision for post-election pacts, because we cannot take them off the table.
Okay.
It is something that could happen. They will come. And also because these things are going to be taking the shape of a contract. Even in normal commercial transactions, or even just normal business transactions, people get into contracts all the time. And they still end up in court litigating over the same contract because either one party has defaulted or one party is frustrating the contract. I'm expecting a lot of that because you're dealing with the same people. Despite the attempts to legislate this and reduce the risk of one party, turning tables on the others, it's going to happen.
Absolutely, absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, you're following this conversation. Annabelle is saying we are not out of the woods. There probably is going to be a lot more drama even after the elections are done, with or without the coalition situation or without the coalition. And so, Annabelle, I would like you to speak into the issue. How about the money? Because the money bit has been a thorn in the flesh of coalitions, whatever coalitions there have been, in the pre this amendment dispensation. Yes. How is that going to change?
The money bit, okay, fine. There's the frameworks again set by statute.
Yes.
But now, when you're getting into an agreement, you're now laying your terms as coalition partners.
Okay.
So we may, of course, now we are not privy to what agreements are being considered or what agreements are going to be drafted. But in the event that people start litigating, then we may get to have a look or a peek into what agreements people entered into. And I do not expect that they will depart, that parties will greatly depart from what has previously been the norm when it comes to money allocation. And again, by and large, it comes down to numbers and also your sphere of influence as individuals.
And the
as an
party
individual
in
party, yes.
Okay.
So,
but the percentage is reduced a bit in the amendment.
Yes, the amendment has become more lenient. And again, the other argument that was being brought up is, have we not become too lenient that we are now opening doors even to what the person was calling village parties? But I feel the amendment on the funding is a good initiative. Because when you look at the role of political parties, most of the times we see political parties when we are gearing up for an election. But there's a lot more to political parties than just fronting candidates for an election. Political parties have internal structures. They have their leadership, they have their secretariats. Like we said, they have their philosophy, they have their agenda. So as you're formulating your agenda and as you're fronting your candidates, as a political party, you always know we could either form government or we could be outside government. So despite the fact that a political party may not form government, they'll be outside government and they still have a mandate to advance their agenda.
Okay.
They still have a mandate to keep the government in check. They still have a mandate to question government on certain policy issues. Now, part of the reason why parties are allocated funds is to keep them running.
Okay.
So if you deprive this party money because it did not hit the target that qualifies them, in terms of numbers that qualifies them for funding, you're curtailing them.
Okay.
So they will not be effective as a political party in a democracy for the duration of those 5 years,
Okay.
in terms of keeping this government in check and in terms of advancing their agenda and the agenda of those Kenyans that they represent.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, so that's the rationale behind funding parties.
Yes.
Of the 83 parties, will every party get something of some kind of a check from the exchequer?
Not necessarily.
What-
Even with the lowered threshold,
Yes.
there are parties that could still miss out on that one.
Okay.
Yeah, if it's one for MCA, you could end up missing out on it.
So, by the way, what's the structure like? If your party, let's say the so-called village parties, you have 10 MCAs, 1 member of parliament. Can you get something? What's the law? What's the amended law saying?
By and large, for coalition partners, your funding is determined by the terms of your agreement.
Okay.
So how you agreed you're sharing the monies, that is what the Office of the Registrar of Political Parties will be guided by. For the rest, you have to if you have more than 2/3 of one gender, you cannot get monies.
Okay.
If you do not have a member of National Assembly, I believe also that disqualifies you from getting the monies. But by and large, because we're seeing the numbers decreasing from, I think, previously there's some certain positions you had to have, I believe, 3 before you get the monies. I think now they've come down to 1. Then you have access to the money, which means there's a lot more latitude for the ones who will not get as many numbers as the ones who will form government.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. So those of you very ambitious Kenyans, you want to form a political party, there's a chance you could get some money to pay off your secretariat and your director and and run an office for 5 years. There's a chance, but you still have to lobby and raise a lot of money, because I guess political party operations is not a small thing.
No, it's not a small thing. Even just the element of having a physical office.
Yes.
Because more often than not, political parties will tend to look for certain locations that will afford you, that privacy and exclusivity, which of course comes at a cost. Then you have a secretariat. That means you have people on payroll. Then there's, the overhead costs, the normal overhead costs of running an office. That is just now, we're talking about the physical office.
Yes.
If you're going to be alleging that you're a national party, then you have to have that national outlook, which means you cannot be saying that you're a national party and you're only fielding candidates in Nairobi County and Kiambu County. You have to have at least 70% of the country, have a presence in 70% of the country.
Okay.
Which comes at a cost, because now having a presence means you're opening branch offices. You're going to be having branch officials. And how most of these structures work is that you have officials from ward level all the way to the national level. That's where now you have the head office.
Yes.
So you will have officials at ward level, you will have officials at constituency level, you will have officials at county level.
County level. And all these have to be registered with the Office of the Registrar of Political Parties.
Now, when you're submitting your documentation, you will be telling the Office of Registrar of Political Parties that this is our structure and these are
the officials.
The officials.
And they are all signed up, or the chair of the sub-county,
yes.
I mean the ward level,
yes.
the chair of the
you have to be now registered
constituency
members.
levels,
yes.
You have to be registered, and you have to have those numbers.
Yes, you have to have those numbers.
Okay.
And then you see now you have those people because they're the ones who help the party mobilize at that level.
Okay.
Mobilization sometimes will include having events, or they're hiring a truck to traverse the ward or the county, which costs money. So let not the fact that the threshold is being lowered be the motivation for people to run registering parties, because running a political party is also a costly affair.
Okay. Actually, Annabelle, I think clearly there are going to be some. So in fact, the question now then begs, at what point does the Office of the Registrar of Political, I like the ORPP, yeah. At what point do they call a certain party dysfunctional and then have to be like notified? We're going to register you, you don't meet the threshold. And do they have that power? And so I'm asking you two questions in one. And is that the reason why people are feeling like now the ORPP is becoming like an imperial office of some sort, the new boss in town?
The functions being bestowed, or the powers being bestowed on the Office of Registrar of Political Parties look harmless.
Right.
But when you contextualize where we've been as a country, especially in the recent, say in the last 2 years, there are certain things you cannot ignore. Now, at this point in time, largely we're looking at Azimio and what they're calling Kenya Kwanza. That's now UDA, Ford Kenya, ANC. Azimio is largely affiliated to the state. Now we're talking of a government that has, by and large, flouted or disobeyed very many court orders.
Okay.
even how, you know, they bulldozed Huduma, how they bulldozed BBI, and how they've also bulldozed the amendment to the political parties.
You make me get in trouble. This is a Christian television.
You're dealing with a government that is showing you that it does not have a problem flexing its muscle.
Okay.
So, because one of the parties that, or Jubilee is the party that formed government, because that party is now allying itself to this other party, then there's a fear that if Azimio sails through, then we will have that impunity. Now, ORPP is not an elective position. It is an appointive position. It becomes very difficult for a human being to say no to their appointing authority. So there is a fear that when there's a dissenting voice with a government backed by people who have shown they're willing to be very punitive in their ways of operations, then they may use that office to punish parties that are dissenting with their way of operation.
Okay, so that's a genuine fear, yes.
Yes. When you now look at the patron of Kenya Kwanza, he is on record as having told certain parties, you know, if you want to work with me, fold your political parties, then come with me. And the question arising from that is, why do they have to fold their political parties to come and work with you? Is it that you also do not want any dissent? So there's a concern that whichever of these sides wins, we don't know whether there'll be a third one coming up in the coming months that, you know, we had not envisioned. But when it comes to that, with those powers being bestowed on the office of the Registrar of Political Parties, there is a concern that because both sides seem to have a no tolerance to differing opinions, then they may use that office to weaken whichever parties will be offering a differing opinion or a dissenting opinion or a dissenting voice.
Okay.
So that is the concern. And because if you look at the history of our country, it is not like certain institutions, government institutions have not been used to such ends. You cannot blame those who are saying that no, this thing is actually becoming an imperial office and we cannot afford to have that. You cannot blame them. They have reason to be afraid.
Okay.
As to whether their fears are founded, only time will tell. We also have to wait to cross the bridge and then see, okay, are we safe? Are we not? We'll have now to take a wait and see approach.
Okay.
Not unless now somebody goes to court and our courts decide that this legislation actually should not have seen the light of day.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So there is still, of course, an exit option, both even for setting aside the law, the new law, if you petition the Supreme Court. I mean, and that's now we've seen, like, do you feel like the way our current judiciary is set at the moment, that there will be firm enough that should such an event, and you don't have to speak for them, I mean, you can just speak on your own behalf, that they may be able to stand up to the rule of law and justice for all? Do you see that as a possible outcome? Should there be a protracted dispute, again, in respect to the office of registrar or political parties, some parties feeling very aggrieved, and then they go to court, government's power and muscle notwithstanding, do you think the judiciary may give Kenyans, kind of like the exit clause, their exit option? Yeah.
Yes, the judiciary may. It has done it before. I don't think it would shy away from doing it again. The only danger is with judiciary is that they do these things at the risk of being whipped.
Okay.
Being whipped in the sense of being deprived of funding.
Yeah. There is always that little string you can pull.
Yes.
Okay.
So that is usually the shortcoming, by and large, for judiciary.
Yes.
Not that judiciary does not have its shortcomings. It does. But I would say they try.
Okay.
I would say they try.
Okay.
Yes.
So if everything works out as planned, I think we will have, and nobody really, breaks any law, then the law as it's set right now may probably provide a much smoother engagement, going forward than the case was before. Do you think that's the case?
It may.
The new act, the amended act.
It may.
Yeah.
But that is if parties abide by the law and abide by whatever agreements they put in place.
Okay.
But there's also another threat in the form of party primaries.
Okay.
Yes. That is another threat. And you'll have this whole business of I'm the one who should have gotten the certificate and not so and so.
Yeah.
How these nominations were handled was not free and fair.
Yeah.
There's that threat.
Okay. That's almost always the elephant in the house.
But if they abide as well by their nomination rules,
Yes.
we should have a very seamless electioneering period, but I think that would be too ambitious for us. For us to expect that is what will happen, we're being too ambitious.
Very good. And I'm going to ask you, now, I raised this with someone else I had a sitting with. And this is the whole idea of, I checked from the ORPP, and I found that I had been registered with a certain political party, unbeknown to myself. And I had been, I actually checked, I resigned actually, because now there is a button for
Resign.
resign,
Yes.
but had been registered since 2012. So who registered me? How comes I was registered? And do you think the law as it stands right now, that I can find redress if I'm totally unhappy with that whole arrangement? I am not happy, obviously, because I never signed up for that. It will remain unnamed for purposes of keeping this conversation discreet.
Yes.
Yes.
I think, number one, 2012 was a long time ago. Usually how this thing works is you will find you have a friend who is interested in vying, and they have identified a political party, and they'll usually come and tell you, just help me with your ID so that I can register you as a member, and then you will come and support me during the nomination so that I can sail through. So that is how a lot of people ended up, especially in the period leading up to the 2013 election, that is how a lot of people ended up being registered as members of political parties.
Okay.
And then you move on with your life and you forget about it. Only now later on, when you're more aware and more present, then you're like, no, I would actually, if I am to engage in this process and if I was to choose a political party, I would want to do it on my terms.
Okay.
Then you find, oh, wait, I was registered, but you forgot. But then there are cases of people's information or data being bought, and then they use that data, to register you as a member of a political party so that they can, show that they have the numbers.
Okay. Okay.
Which, now, when it gets to that juncture, it is a breach of this person's privacy. And now that is why we have the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner, and there's a law on data protection. They had published regulations, but I think now they're drawing closer to having those regulations now formalized and made law. So yes, now Kenyans are going to have a platform to seek redress, so that now you can put parties to task. Because if I am saying I did not give you this data, then where did you get this data?
Okay. Imagine we've run out of time.
Okay, no problem.
So, is there one little thing we haven't mentioned that you want to mention now in like 30 seconds? Something that you feel.
What you had said, there's a question, the last question you had, what are we not talking about?
Yes, what are we not talking about?
What I believe we're not really talking about is IEBC's timelines and whether they are being fully supported to enable them to meet those timelines.
Okay.
Because if they're not able to meet those timelines, then there are a lot of people who are going to be jeopardized. Not just the aspirants, but also the citizens of this country.
Okay.
So when IEBC has been complaining that, they need this monies at some point, I believe last year, the government had put a hold on donor funding, yet a good chunk of donors' money goes towards financing the IEBC. I think that is a conversation we need to be having as Kenyans.
Absolutely. All right, we've got to end it here. This has been a very exciting conversation. Annabelle Gichuki has shared with us very, very insightful information and helped us to understand what's going on in the political arena. You be ready for more. The ground is only just shaking right now. But we'll have similar conversation going forward, and you will hear a lot more about what's going on in the political arena. Thank you so much, Anne, for agreeing to come on this show. And it was very, very helpful that you've given us a lot of insight on political parties and what's going on. So, ladies and gentlemen, we've got to bring this to a close. I have been your host, Godfrey Gichuki. This is the Gigi Report. We'll see you another day, same time, same place, same channel. God bless you. Have a great evening. Bye.